The grand chamber of the Zephyrite Supreme Council gleamed with the light of 1,000 ceremonial candles. Ambassador Krell stood at the center, his forearms raised high, his voice echoing through the vast hall. Around him, the holographic projectors hummed to life, preparing to broadcast the most important message in Zephyrite history. Today, Krell's began, his voice steady. With practiced authority, we declare war upon the species known as humanity. The other council members nodded solemnly. They had debated this for months. The humans had crossed into Zephyrite territory. They had established colonies on worlds the Zephyrites had claimed. 3,000 years ago, they had ignored every warning, every diplomatic message, every carefully worded threat. The recording began. Krellix read from the ancient texts invoking the names of Zephyrite gods and heroes. He listed humanity's crimes in the traditional manner, taking care to emphasize each violation of galactic law. The speech took 2 hours. It had been written by the finest poets and scholars in the Empire. Every word carried weight. Every phrase had been carefully chosen to strike fear into the hearts of their enemies. When the recording finished, they transmitted it across all known communication channels. 3,000 languages. Every human colony would receive it, every human ship, every human station. The message was clear and unmistakable. The Zephyrite Empire, oldest and most powerful civilization in the known galaxy, had declared war. Krells felt satisfied. Soon the humans would respond. They would beg for mercy. They would offer tribute. They would withdraw from Zephyrite space and accept their place as a lesser species. This was how it always went. The Zephyrite had fought 17 wars in their long history. They had won 17 wars. The first response came 3 days later. Krells hurried to the communication center, his heart's beating fast with anticipation. Finally, the humans would show proper respect. Finally, they would understand their mistake. The message was short, very short. Thank you for your message. Galactic Relations Office is currently closed for the weekend. Our business hours are Monday through Friday 9:00 a.m. to 5:00 p.m. Earth Standard Time. Someone will respond to your inquiry within 3 to 5 business days. For urgent matters, please press 1. For colony permits, please press 2. For Krellix stared at the screen. It was an automatic reply, a recording. The humans had not even bothered to listen to their declaration of war. They had simply filed it away like some minor administrative matter. Perhaps they did not understand, suggested council member Theodun. Perhaps their translation was faulty. We sent it in 3,000 languages. Krellix replied, his voice tight, including their own. Then perhaps this is some strange human custom, offered another council member, a negotiating tactic. They wish to appear unconcerned. Krellies considered this. Yes, that must be it. The humans were trying to seem brave. They were hiding their fear behind bureaucratic procedures. This was actually quite clever in a primitive sort of way. We proceed as planned, Krellix announced. The Warfleet launches tomorrow. The Zephyrite Warfleet was magnificent, 200 ships each, one a masterpiece of engineering and art. The flagship alone carried 10,000 warriors. Admiral Vexler commanded from the bridge, his ceremonial armor polished to perfection. This would be glorious. This would be remembered for generations. As the fleet departed, Another message arrived from humanity. Krelix opened it immediately, expecting surrender terms or at least some sign of panic. Dear Zephyrite Empire, the message read, we acknowledge receipt of your declaration of war dated standard. Calendar 224,795. This matter has been forwarded to the appropriate department. Is there anything else we can help you with today? Please rate your customer service experience by clicking the link below. Krells felt his secondary stomachs twist. This was not normal. This was not how species behaved when faced with annihilation. Should we send another message? Asked his aide, a young diplomat named Krellex. No, Krell said slowly. We wait. Once our fleet arrives at their borders and begins the attack, they will understand. They will have no choice but to understand. 3 weeks passed. The Zephyrite fleet moved through space at maximum speed. They would reach human territory in another 2 months. Krell spent his days monitoring human communications, waiting for signs of fear, of military mobilization, of anything that showed they took the threat seriously. Human news broadcasts were baffling. They mentioned the war declaration once, briefly on a program called News at 6. The anchor, a female human with an oddly cheerful expression, spent 15 seconds on it. The Zephyrite Empire has declared war on humanity, she said, smiling at the camera. In other news, celebrity couple Brad Morrison and Jennifer Cole have announced their engagement. We'll have exclusive details after the break. 15 seconds. They had given the most important event in recent galactic history. 15 seconds, sandwiched between weather reports and entertainment gossip. Krells watched in disbelief as human society continued exactly as before. Their ships moved along trade routes without any apparent concern. Their colonies continued construction projects. Their military forces remain scattered across their territory, conducting routine patrols. Perhaps they are in shock, suggested Theodin. Perhaps they cannot comprehend what is happening, but that did not explain the message that arrived 6 weeks after the declaration. It came from Earth's diplomatic office just as promised. 3 to 5 business days. They had said it had taken 6 weeks. Dear Ambassador Krells, the message began. Thank you for your declaration of war. We have reviewed your concerns regarding territorial boundaries and unauthorized expansion. Please note that the sectors in question were classified as unclaimed under the Galactic Charter of 2145. However, we understand there may have been a miscommunication. Would you like to schedule a meeting to discuss this matter? Our next available appointment is in 8 months. Please let us know if this time works for you. 8 months. They wanted to schedule a diplomatic meeting in 8 months while a war fleet was bearing down on their territory. Krellex began to feel something he had not felt in many years. Doubt, not doubt about Zephyrite's superiority, not doubt about their military might, but doubt about whether the humans actually understood what was happening. Perhaps, Krell said quietly, perhaps humans are simply very, very stupid. Krells wanted to believe that it would make sense, but something in the casual tone of their messages, in the complete lack of concern, suggested something else, something he could not quite identify. The Warfleet continued its journey. Admiral Vexler sent daily reports. Everything was proceeding perfectly. The warriors were ready. Weapons were primed. Soon they would engage the human forces and teach them. The price of disrespecting the Zephyrite Empire. Krells tried to feel confident. But late at night in his private chambers he found himself watching human broadcasts again, looking for something, some sign that they understood, some hint of fear. He found none. The humans went about their lives as if nothing was happening, as if the greatest military force in the galaxy was not heading toward them with the intent to conquer. It made no sense. It defied all logic, all military theory, all diplomatic precedent, and deep in his heart, Krellix began to wonder if perhaps the Zephyrites had made a terrible mistake. Captain Maria Santos checked her cargo manifest for the third time that morning. 200 tons of mining equipment, 50 atmospheric processors, and one very expensive piece of surveying gear that someone had marked as fragile. She hated fragile cargo. It always meant extra paperwork if something broke. Her ship, the profitable venture, was a standard human freighter, nothing fancy. It had decent engines, adequate shields, and enough weapons to scare off pirates if they were having a bad day. Maria had been running cargo between colonies for 12 years now. It was boring work mostly, but it paid well enough. Captain, her co-pilot Jake called from the bridge. Did you see the news thing? Which news thing? Maria was busy securing the atmospheric processors. They had a tendency to shift during jump if you did not strap them down properly. About the war. Maria paused. What war? Some alien empire declared war on us. The Z something Zephyrite, I think. Huh? Maria went back to checking the cargo straps. When did this happen? Like 6 weeks ago, apparently. 6 weeks? Maria laughed. And we're just hearing about it now. Jake shrugged. Even though she could not see him from the cargo bay, I guess it wasn't important enough for the news feeds. I only saw it because my mom sent me an article. She thought it was interesting. Maria finished with the processors and headed back to the bridge. Jake had the article pulled up on the main screen. She read it quickly. Some empire spanning 47 star systems claims about territorial violations, formal declaration of war with all the traditional ceremonies. Well, Maria said, settling into her captain's chair. That's weird. Should we be worried? Maria considered this. She pulled up a star map and located Zephyrite space. It was pretty far away. Their current route took them nowhere near it. Probably not. I mean, if it was serious, we'd have gotten a message from command, right? Change of route, security alerts. Something. Yeah, that makes sense. Jake looked relieved. So we just keep doing our normal run, unless someone tells us different. Maria started the pre-flight sequence. They were scheduled to leave in 20 minutes. Besides, even if they did want to cause trouble, it would take them forever to get here. Space is big. Really big, Jake agreed, quoting from some old book they both remembered from school. The profitable venture departed on schedule. Maria had a delivery deadline to meet on New Coventry, one of the mining colonies on the frontier. The colony supervisor there was a stickler for punctuality. Late deliveries meant late fees, and late fees meant Maria's bonus got cut. 3 days into the journey, Maria got a message from her sister Rachel, who worked at a military listening post near Jupiter. Hey sis, the message began. Rachel always looked tired in her videos. Night shifts did that to people. Mom is freaking out about this war thing. Can you tell her it's nothing? She keeps calling me asking if I'm Safe, Maria sent back a quick reply. Tell Mom the war is like 3 months away from even getting close to human space. If that, the military probably forgot about it already. Love you, that was. True enough, Maria had checked the official channels. There was a single notice about the Zephyrite declaration. Buried in the military briefings. Status: acknowledged, response pending. Diplomatic review, threat level low. It was right there between a notice about updated uniform regulations and a reminder about the annual physical fitness tests. New Coventry appeared on their sensors exactly on schedule. Colony sat on a mineral-rich world that looked like a big brown rock from space. 3,000 miners lived there, pulling rare metals out of the ground and shipping them back to Earth. It was hard work. Dangerous sometimes, but the pay was incredible. Maria brought the profitable venture into orbit and hailed the colony profitable venture. This is new. Coventry Control, a bored voice responded. You're cleared for landing at Base 7. Try not to scratch the paint this time. That was one time, Maria muttered, and it was barely a scratch. Jake grinned. It was a pretty big scratch, Captain. They landed smoothly. The mining equipment was unloaded by local workers who looked like they had just finished a long shift. Maria handed over the paperwork to the colony supervisor, a grumpy man named Peterson, who inspected every item like he expected to find something wrong. Heard about the war, Peterson said while checking the atmospheric processors. Yeah, Maria was only half listening. She was watching the workers unload the surveying equipment. Fragile, remember. Bunch of nonsense if you ask me. These aliens think they can just roll in here and tell us what to do. Peterson snorted. Let them try. We've got work to do. That seemed to be the general attitude. Maria talked to a few other people while waiting for her return. Cargo, nobody seemed particularly concerned. A few people joked about it. One miner said he hoped the aliens would hurry up so they could get it over with before football season started. The return trip was uneventful. Maria delivered her cargo, filed her reports, and took a few days off. She spent most of that time sleeping and catching up on her favorite shows. About 2 months after the initial declaration, Maria noticed military ships moving around more than usual. Not a lot more, just enough to be noticeable. A few extra patrols, some supply runs to the outer colonies. Is this because of the war thing? Jake asked when they saw a cruiser pass by on their next run. Maybe. Maria checked the fleet movements on her authorized channel. She had low-level clearance from her time in the Navy. The military was doing something, but it did not look like much. Standard defensive positions, routine readiness checks, nothing that suggested panic or emergency preparations. She did notice one thing, though. A lot of the really big ships, the dreadnoughts and carriers, were not moving toward Zephyrite space. They were moving away from it toward the far edge of human territory, toward the galactic rim. That was odd, but Maria figured it was not her business. She hauled cargo. The Navy did Navy things. Everyone had their job. 3 months after the declaration, a message went out to all civilian ships. Maria read it while having breakfast. Attention all vessels, be advised that hostile forces may be present in sectors 447 through 451. Recommend alternate routes where possible. This is a low priority. Advisory, maintain standard protocols. Sectors 447 through 451. That was near. New Coventry, Maria checked her schedule. She had a delivery to New Coventry next week. She sent a message to Control. Do I need to postpone the New Coventry run? The reply came back in an hour. Negative. Proceed as scheduled. Local defenses are adequate. Local defenses. Maria knew what that meant. New Coventry had maybe 6 orbital platforms and a handful of patrol ships. Nothing special. She mentioned this too. Jake, should we be worried? He asked. Maria thought about it. The military said proceed as scheduled. They would not send civilians into actual danger. Probably. Nah, they've got it covered. If you say so, Captain. Maria did say so, and she believed it mostly. The thing was, if the military thought they Zephyrites were a real threat, there would be a lot more activity. Cancelled. Leave, emergency drills, fleet mobilizations, the whole 9 yards. Instead, everything felt normal. Routine. Like the war was just another item on a very long list of things happening in a very big galaxy. The profitable venture headed toward New Coventry right on schedule. Maria had equipment to deliver and a bonus to earn. War or no war, bills did not pay themselves somewhere out in the dark. The Zephyrite fleet was getting closer. But space was big, really big, and Maria Santos had cargo to haul. Commander Jothic stood on the bridge of the Zeit flagship Glory of Ages and watched the human colony grow larger on the Viewcreen. New Coventry, they called it. A mining world, according to their intelligence. Population around 50,000. Minimal defenses. This would be their first conquest, the beginning of the campaign. Soon the humans would understand what it meant to face the Zephyrite Empire. All ships battle formation. Admiral Vexler commanded. His voice rang with confidence. 200 ships moved into position with practiced precision. It was beautiful, terrifying, overwhelming. Commander, the sensor officer reported, we're detecting 6 orbital defense platforms and 3 patrol ships. Jathic frowned. Only 3 patrol ships? Are you certain? Yes. Commander, they appear to be standard patrol craft, nothing larger. This was suspicious. Where was the main defense fleet? Where were the reinforcements? The humans must have known they were coming. They'd had months to prepare. Perhaps they fled, suggested the sensor officer, or perhaps it's a trap. Jake countered. He'd studied human tactics during the journey. They were an unpredictable species, aggressive, reckless. They might have hidden their forces somehow. Begin scanning for cloaked vessels. Admiral Vexthard and someone hail those patrol ships. Give them a chance to surrender before we destroy them. The communications officer opened a channel. Attention, human vessels. This is the Zephyrite Imperial fleet. You are ordered to surrender immediately or face destruction. The reply came quickly, too quickly. The humans did not sound afraid at all. Yeah, we got your message. Hold on a second. There was a pause. Jothic could hear voices in the background talking casually. Hey Marcus, what's the protocol for this? Is it Form 27B or 28B? How should I know? Check the manual. The manual is like 3,000 pages long, man. Just tell them we're not surrendering. That seems pretty standard. The human came back on the channel. Sorry about that. We're not surrendering. Also, you're in violation of colonial airspace regulations. You need to file for proper clearance before entering orbit. Jake stared at the Communications officer. The communications officer stared back. Equally confused, did they just sight? Airspace regulations, Jathik asked. I believe so, Commander, Admiral Vexthers. Expression hardened, destroy them. The Zephyrite fleet opened fire, energy. Beams lanced through space bright and deadly. The first orbital platform exploded in a satisfying burst of debris, then the second, the third took a few more hits but eventually succumbed. The human patrol ships dodged and weaved, surprisingly nimble. They returned fire with their own weapons. Not particularly powerful weapons, but accurate. One of the Zephyrite cruisers took damage to its port shields. All ships concentrate fire on the patrol vessels, Vexer commanded. 3 Zephyrite cruisers surrounded one human patrol ship. It was a small vessel, maybe a tenth their size. It fired at them continuously, hitting with annoying precision, but its weapons could not penetrate their shields. They fight well for primitives, Jake admitted. Then something strange happened. The human ship broadcast a message. Oh, come on, I'm missing the game for this. The game? What game? Another human voice responded. Stop complaining and focus. We need to hold them off until the civilians evacuate. The game is tied. It's the championship. Do you know how long I've waited? The transmission cut off as another Zephyrite cruiser joined the attack. The human ship's shields finally failed. It tried to retreat, limping away, trailing sparks, but a final barrage caught it. Amidships, the vessel went dark and began to drift. 2 patrol ships down, 1 remaining. It was fighting 3 Zephyrite cruisers at once, somehow managing to avoid most of their fire. How is it doing that? Jathai wondered. Aloud, the human ship's pilot was incredibly skilled, dancing between energy beams that should have obliterated it. Probably lucky, the weapons officer suggested, but it was not luck. Jathik could tell. The human pilot knew exactly what they were doing. Every move was calculated, precise. They were not trying to win. They were trying to survive, to delay, but delay what? The colony was defenseless. The platforms were destroyed. The patrol ships were beaten. Final warning to the human vessel. Vexter said, surrender or be destroyed. The human response was immediate. Yeah, that's going to be no for me, buddy, but hey, good effort. With the threatening, real scary, really selling it, Jody felt his neck ridges flush with anger. These humans had no respect, no dignity. They mocked them. Even in defeat, destroy them. Vex third coldly. It took another 5 minutes. The human ship fought until its weapons failed, until its engines died, until it was nothing but a drifting hull, but it never surrendered. All hostile vessels eliminated. The censor officer reported, the colony is defenseless. Begin landing operations. Vexter commanded. Commander Jathik, you will lead the ground forces. Take the colony. Show them what it means to defy the Zephyrite Empire. Jack assembled his warriors. They boarded the landing craft with pride and anticipation. This was what they had trained for, what they had dreamed of: glory in battle, victory and conquest. The landing craft descended through the atmosphere. New Coventry surface was ugly, brown dirt gray. Rocks, mining facilities scattered across the landscape. The colony's main settlement was a collection of prefabricated buildings and industrial complexes. They landed at the main spaceport. Jathik expected resistance, armed defenders, barricades, something Instead, they found a crowd of humans, standing around looking annoyed. One of them, a large male with a graying beard, stepped forward. "You're the invading army." Jake raised his weapon. "I am Commander J. Thick of the Zephrite Imperial Forces. This colony is now under Zerite control. You will surrender immediately." The human looked back at the crowd. "They're serious, huh?" Another human said. "That's actually happening." Then apparently the bearded human turned back to Jake. And GT, "Look, I'm Peterson. And GT, I run this colony. Can you guys at least let us finish the current mining shift? We're behind on quotas as it is, and this really isn't helping." Jai was speechless. They were being invaded, and this human was worried about mining quotas. "You are prisoners of war," Jik said slowly, enunciating each word. "You have no say in what happens now." Peterson sighed heavily. "Fine, but you're explaining this to corporate. They're going to be pissed about the production delays over the next few hours." Jadik's warriors occupied the colony. The humans offered no resistance. They complained a lot, but they did not fight. They just went about securing equipment, backing up data, and grumbling about the inconvenience. "This is not normal," Jake told his second in command. "Conquered people should be afraid. They should be panicking." "Perhaps they are in shock, Commander." But they did not look like they were in shock. They looked annoyed, frustrated, like someone had canceled their plans for the weekend. One human, a young female, approached. "Jathik, excuse me, are you in charge?" I'm Commander Jathik." "Great. Look, we've got some volatile chemicals in storage. Base 7, if you guys are going to be moving stuff around, be careful with those. They're explosive and expensive." "You're giving me safety warnings." "Well, yeah, I mean, you blow up the chemicals. You blow up half the colony, and then nobody wins, right? Just trying to help." Jake did not know what to say. This was the strangest conquest he had ever participated in. The humans acted like this was a minor inconvenience, not a catastrophic military defeat. That night, Jaddy sent his report to the fleet. "Colony secured, minimal resistance, human forces defeated, population compliant but unusual." He wanted to say more, wanted to express his confusion, his unease, but how could he explain this feeling, this sense that something was very, very wrong? The humans acted like they did not care, like this war did not matter, and that terrified him more than any weapon ever could. Intelligence Officer Murtith had been analyzing human data for 3 weeks. Now, at first it had seemed straightforward: learn about human military capabilities, find their weaknesses, standard intelligence work. But nothing about humans was standard. She sat in her office aboard the Glory of Ages, surrounded by holographic displays showing human communications, ship movements, and historical records. The more she learned, the less she understood. "Commander Jathik," she called through the communication system, "I need to show you something." Jake arrived quickly. Since the occupation of New Coventry, he had been eager for any information that might explain human behavior. "What have you found?" Meredith pulled up a star map. "I've been tracking human military movements over the past 6 months before our declaration of war, during and after, and they barely changed." She highlighted several regions, some minor repositioning, a few extra patrols near our expected route. But nothing significant. No mobilization, no recall of forces, no emergency preparations. Perhaps they are incompetent, Jake suggested. That's what I thought at first. Meredith pulled up another display. But look at this human ship designs. Every single one of their vessels, even civilian freighters, has military shields and weapons. Their colony structures are reinforced to withstand orbital bombardment. Their mining equipment can be converted to weapons manufacturing in days. Jathik studied the data. They prepare their entire society for war. It's more than that. Meredith's hands trembled slightly. As she pulled up more files, I started digging into their history, their recent history, the things they've been fighting. She displayed an incident report from 5 years ago, the Void Swarm. Ever heard of it? Jarthik shook his head. Neither had I. It came from beyond the galactic rim, millions of creatures that could survive in hard vacuum. They consumed everything organic. 3 human colonies were attacked. Meredith paused. The humans fought them off, lost 50,000 people, but they won, and we never heard about it because they classified the entire incident. That's impressive, but that's not even the concerning part. Meredith pulled up another file. 2 years ago, something happened to the Prometheus colony, population 200,000. The colony went silent for 3 days. When human military forces arrived, everyone was alive but changed somehow. Reports are heavily redacted, but what I could find, she trailed off. What? The humans sterilized the entire planet from orbit, killed all 200,000 of their own people, then they established a permanent quarantine zone around it. Anyone who goes near that planet without authorization gets destroyed on sight. No questions asked. Jathik felt cold. They killed their own colony to stop whatever was there from spreading. Meredith pulled up more files. There's more encounters with something called the twisted reality bending entities that exist partially outside normal space. The humans fought them in the Kepler sector, and here, look at this. Ship logs from the frontier, references to something they just call the thing we don't talk about, the thing we don't talk about. That's all it says. No details, no description, just warnings to stay away from certain areas, entire sectors where human ships refuse to go. Meredith met Jake's eyes. Commander, I think I know why the humans didn't respond to our declaration of war. Why? Because they're already fighting wars that make ours look like a border dispute. They're fighting things that would give us nightmares, things we can't even imagine. Jathik sat down heavily. That can't be true. We would have heard. The galactic community would know, would we? Meredith pulled up human communication logs. Look at how they talk about these threats, casual matter of fact, like it's just part of their normal routine. They've been dealing with existential horrors for decades, and they've gotten so good at it that they don't even bother telling anyone else. She pulled up one final document, a human military report. This is from 3 months ago, around the time we declared war. It's a threat assessment of the Zephyrite Empire. Jake leaned forward. What does it say? Threat level minimal. Recommendation, standard diplomatic protocols, monitor situation, do not redirect resources from primary operations. Meredith's voice was hollow. We're not even a priority. We're barely a footnote. Jake felt sick. What are their primary operations? Meredith pulled up a tactical map. It showed the deployment of human military forces, the majority of their fleet, their biggest Ships, their best warriors, were all concentrated on the far side of human territory away from Zephyrite base. They're fighting something out there, Meredith said quietly, something on the galactic rim, something so dangerous that they keep their entire main battle fleet there permanently. What is it? I don't know. The records are too heavily classified, but look at the ship logs from vessels that returned from that region. She pulled up several reports. Ships with battle damage that should have been impossible, crew members suffering from psychological trauma, requests for specialized ammunition that violated 3 different galactic treaties. One log entry stood out. It was from the human dreadnought Indomitable, returning from a 3-month deployment. On the rim, all hands accounted for. Victory achieved, but Parak enemy forces repelled but not eliminated. They'll be back. They're always back. Recommend continued maximum alert status. Whatever happens, we can't let them through. If they reach the inner colonies, if they reach Earth, the rest was redacted. Jake, read it 3 times. What could make humans write like that? I don't know, Meredith admitted, but I found something else. Look at the human ship that fought our cruisers at New Coventry, the one that held out so long. She pulled up the ship specifications. Standard patrol vessel, crew of 20, designed for anti-piracy operations. Nothing special. It fought like a warship, because to humans every ship is a warship. Every crew is trained for combat. Every colony is a fortress. Meredith looked exhausted. They live like this all the time, always ready, always fighting because they have to be. But why didn't they tell us? Why didn't they warn the galaxy? Meredith laughed bitterly. Maybe they tried and no one believed them, or maybe they decided it was better to handle it themselves, keep the rest of us safe and ignorant. Jake thought about New Coventry, the humans who had seemed so unconcerned about being conquered. They weren't in denial. They weren't stupid. They just had bigger problems to worry about. We need to tell the Admiral, Jake said. We need to tell the Council. Tell them what? That we picked a fight with a species that's already fighting for its survival against things we can't comprehend. That our grand invasion is just a minor annoyance to them. Yes, Jake stood. Exactly that. They went to Admiral Vexler together, showed him everything. The Admiral listened, his expression growing more troubled with each revelation. When they finished, Vexler was silent for a long time. This changes everything, he finally said. We need to withdraw immediately. What about New Coventry? Jothic asked. Give it back, apologize, do whatever it takes to end this war before we attract their serious attention. Vexler pulled up the fleet status, because if we make them angry enough to redirect even a fraction of their real military force toward us, we won't survive. As they prepared the withdrawal orders, Meredith noticed something on her sensors. Admiral, we have incoming ships. Zephyrite reinforcements. No, sir. Human vessels moving past us at high speed. They watched as a formation of human warships appeared on their sensors. These were not patrol vessels. These were the real thing, dreadnoughts, carriers, ships bristling with weapons. They couldn't identify. The human fleet did not slow down, did not acknowledge them, just passed by like the Zephyrite armada was not even there. One of the human ships sent a brief message as it passed. Excuse us, on our way to handle something. Try not to blow anything else up while we're gone. Jake watched them disappear into the distance, heading toward the galactic rim. What are they going to fight? He whispered. No one answered because no one wanted to know. Ambassador Krells received the urgent message from Admiral Vexther while preparing his evening meal. The war had been going so well, or so he thought. New Coventry conquered, human resistance minimal, everything according to plan. The message changed everything. Returned to the council immediately. Emergency session. We are withdrawing all forces. Withdrawing after just one conquest. This made no sense. Krellix rushed to the council chambers. The other members were already assembled there. Expressions grim. Admiral Vexther stood at the center, looking like he had aged 10 years in a matter of days. Explain, council member the Rodden demanded. Vexther played the intelligence. Reports, the data about human military capabilities, the classified incidents, the threats they faced, the enormous fleet stationed at the galactic rim. The council watched in growing horror. This cannot be accurate, one member protested. Our intelligence must be mistaken. It's all verified, Vexther replied. Multiple sources cross-referenced. The humans have been fighting a war we knew nothing about. War that makes ours look insignificant. Krellix felt his world tilting. They had poked a sleeping giant. Worse, they had poked a giant that was already busy fighting monsters. We withdraw. Immediately, Krellix announced. Send peace envoys. Apologize. Return New Coventry. Whatever it takes. Agreed. The Rodden said. The vote was unanimous. They sent their finest diplomats to Earth, offered reparations, begged forgiveness, waited anxiously for the human response. It came 2 days later. Oh, were we at war? Sorry, we've been a bit distracted. Sure, peace sounds good. We'll send someone to sign whatever paperwork you need. How about next month? We've got our hands full right now. Next month the humans would get around to officially ending the war next month, when they had time, when they were not busy with whatever they were actually fighting. The Zephyrite fleet began its retreat. Commander Jathik supervised the withdrawal from New Coventry. The humans there seemed almost disappointed to see them go. That's it, Peterson asked. You're leaving already? The war is over, Jick explained. We are returning your colony. Okay then, Peterson looked at his data pad. I need you to sign some forms for the damage reports. Corporate will want documentation. Even in withdrawal, the humans were concerned about paperwork. As the Zephyrite ships departed New Coventry, Jathik stood on the bridge and watched the planet shrink. Behind them, he felt relief. They had survived their encounter with humanity. Barely. Commander, the sensor officer called. Multiple contacts ahead. Human warships. Jathik's heart skipped. Were the humans attacking despite the peace agreement? But no, the human fleet was moving perpendicular to their position. Not toward them, past them, a massive formation of warships heading somewhere else, somewhere more important. The ships were massive dreadnoughts that dwarfed anything in the Zephyrite fleet. Carriers that could hold hundreds of fighters, vessels covered in weapons and armor and things could not identify. And the damage, every ship bore scars, blast marks, hull breaches that had been hastily repaired. These were not parade ships. These were warriors returning from battle. One of the human vessels sent a casual transmission as it passed. Hey there, nice ships you've got. Very shiny. We chat, but we're on a schedule. Got some bad guys to shoot. You folks take care now. the transmission cut off. The human fleet continued on its way, disappearing into the vast darkness of space. Jick realized he was holding his breath. He forced himself to exhale. Where are they going? His second in command asked. Somewhere we should be. Grateful we don't have to follow, Jick replied. The journey back to Zephyr space took 3 months, 3 months of quiet reflection, 3 months of understanding just how close they had come to destruction. Ambassador Krell spent those months writing his report. It would be the most important document in recent Zeit history, a complete reassessment of humanity and their place in the galaxy. He titled it The Humans, a revised strategic analysis. The report was blunt. Humans were not the primitive upstarts the Zephyrites had assumed. They were warriors hardened by conflicts the Zephyrites could barely imagine. They had fought and defeated threats that would have destroyed the Zephyrite empire. More importantly, they had done it quietly, without boasting, without demanding recognition. They had simply handled their problems and moved on. We must seek alliance with humanity, Krellix wrote in his conclusion, not as a matter of conquest, but as a matter of survival, because if the threats they face on the galactic rim ever break through, we will need them. We will need their strength, their experience, their weapons, and if we have made enemies of them instead, if we have earned their anger, then we will have no one to protect us from what comes next. The council read his report in silence. When they finished, Theoden spoke first. We must make amends, proper amends, not just peace but friendship. Agreed, Krell said. I will volunteer to be our permanent ambassador to Earth. Someone needs to build bridges between our peoples, and someone needs to find out what they're fighting. Another council member added, we need to know what threats exist out there, what dangers we've been ignorant of. Admiral Vexther, who had been sitting quietly, finally spoke. I saw one of their wounded ships up close during the withdrawal. The damage it had sustained should have destroyed it 10 times over. But it was still flying, still fighting. He paused, his expression haunted. Whatever did that to them, whatever they're fighting out there in the dark, I hope we never have to face it ourselves, because if we do, I don't think we'll survive. The council adjourned. Krellix returned to his quarters and began preparing for his new role. Ambassador to Earth. Bridge you are between civilizations. He thought about the human who had answered their declaration of war, the bureaucrat who had simply filed it away and sent an automatic response. At the time it had seemed like disrespect. Now he understood it was perspective. When you spent your days fighting nightmares from beyond reality, a conventional war with a regional empire was just paperwork and administrative matter to be handled when time permitted. Months later, Krell stood on Earth for the first time. The planet was beautiful. Blue oceans, green continents, peaceful. He met with the human diplomatic corps. They were polite, professional. They accepted the Zephyrite apology graciously. They signed the peace treaty without drama. Thank you for understanding, Krell said. About the war, about our mistake, the human diplomat, a middle-aged woman named Ambassador Chen, smiled warmly. Don't worry about it. These things happen. Miscommunications, territorial disputes. It's all pretty normal. Normal, Krell's repeated. To humans, their war had been normal, a minor inconvenience. We're actually glad to have another ally, Chen continued. The more friends we have, the better, because out there, she gestured vaguely toward the sky. Well, there's a lot of galaxy, and not all of it is friendly. What are you fighting? Krelix asked. Out there on the rim, what is it? Chen's smile faded slightly. Nothing you need to worry about, Ambassador. We've got it handled. But we've got it handled, she repeated, more firmly this time. That's our responsibility, our burden. You just worry about keeping your people safe and being a good neighbor. That's all we ask. Krelix wanted to press further, wanted to know, but he saw the look in her eyes, the weight of terrible knowledge, the burden of secrets that could not be shared, so he simply nodded. Later, standing on Earth's surface, looking up at the stars, Krelix thought about humanity, about their casual strength, their quiet courage, the way they faced horrors beyond comprehension and simply called it handled. Somewhere out there beyond human space, beyond the rim, something terrible waited, something that required humanity's full attention, something that made a war with the Zephyrite Empire barely worth noticing, and humanity stood between that darkness and the rest of the galaxy. Krelix offered a quiet prayer to the Zephyrite gods, not for his own people. They would be fine. Humanity would keep them safe whether they knew it or not. No, he prayed for the humans, for the warriors fighting in the dark, for the defenders holding the line, for the species that had declared themselves the galaxy's silent guardian, because everyone needed someone to watch over them, even humanity especially. Humanity